General Governmental Operations and Cultural Affairs is now back in order. The next group on our list is the Guam Peace Officers Training, Peace Officer Standard and Training Commission, Post Commission. And we have here Dennis Santos, who is the Executive Director of Post, and he has come with some testimony. And Colonel.
Okay, good morning, Vice Speaker Cruz and fellow senators. Again, thank you again for inviting us to be here. And my name is Dennis Santo Tomas. I'm the Executive Director for the Guam Post Commission, Peace Officer Standards and Training. And basically I work, I meet every month with the respective chiefs of law enforcement on Guam, throughout Guam. We discuss ways that we can basically establish standards across the board for all of our peace officers in Guam, whether it be in how we train them, how we retain them, how we keep them fit, and so forth. So it's work in motion. We were successful in establishing the first ever rules and regulation for post. That has been approved by the commission, and we should soon be convening a public hearing by which we can open up questions to the general public and then finally get it over to the Guam legislature for so get it registered with you guys. And the other thing that we've also done as a commission is also establish physical fitness standards for all of our peace officers in Guam. That just recently, as last month, got voted on and approved again. So I will be packaging that with the rules and regulations in the upcoming public hearing, and then once the two public hearings have been completed, then we'll package everything and make sure it's in accordance with what the legislature needs and send it here to this body. Now I've kind of skimmed through the draft SEIS, and I just pulled excerpts out of this thing, and these things come from page 294 in the draft SEIS. And I see that they said, if you just look at that first paragraph, they said that they've broken it down into category services, education, health, public safety, and so forth. So I was just looking for everything in the SIS that focused on public safety. Okay, the first two paragraphs are just general in nature, although in the second paragraph they do talk about a total, somewhere where you see that 2% in there, a total group level increase of 2% above baseline staffing and so forth. Again, just my general opinion, I don't think we can put a generalized number on anything, because every agency is different, every need in the government is different. So I would have a problem with putting any kind of fixed percentage on any kind of growth factor. When you move down to the third paragraph, it makes mention in the draft SEIS again about GCC's ability to train skilled nurses. Well, again, GCC issues out associate's degrees and certificates, so we don't generate nurses, we generate nursing assistants and medical assistants. So I believe you want to be a nurse, you have to go over to University of Guam. So we prep our students to be nursing assistants and medical assistants, and then we assist them in finding a college to finish up their bachelor's degree. Again, I highlighted again that GPD has been identified in having critical deficiencies in staff, and that's good. That's very true, not only GPD, but across the board for all law enforcement. So I'd like to point out it's not only GPD, but all law enforcement agencies in general. And in that last paragraph last sentence of the first paragraph, of the third paragraph, it says here the percentage increase by itself is not sufficient to justify a significant determination without also having evaluated reasonable contextual factors. So I guess that says, yeah, it's good. They're saying that you can't really determine the percentage increase that they need in both equipment and personnel until looking at other things that they refer to as reasonable contextual factors. Okay, moving on down to the fourth paragraph. Again, it's talking about staffing again, about during the construction phase, and then tapering tapering off during the steady state operations. Well, we've always been undermanned in the law enforcement anyway across the board. We do need to build it up to a certain level, a higher level than it is today, because all the law enforcement agencies are suffering. And when we do build it up, I don't believe we need to then trickle it back down. Once we build it up, we need to keep it steady at that whatever level we build it up. So I don't believe it should be trickled down once construction phases are over. Again, at the bottom of that fourth paragraph, it just continues to talk about 2% level and all that stuff, which I already made mention that I don't believe it should be fixated at any number, period. Okay. If we can go to the next page, please, page 2. Okay, if we go to social-cultural impacts, that header there, and move down to the highlighted in yellow areas, and it does, I'm glad that it does say that in proportion to the increase in on-island population, there would likely be impacts in the overall number of crimes and on social order, because that's true. I think if you go to any jurisdiction across the U.S., anytime you increase the population by a significant number, you will have problems in the community. You will have increases in crime. You will have problems with our socioeconomic system. So I'm glad that first bullet is there. Also, there is a potential for social friction due to more military personnel and more on-island civilian migrants. So that's true. And not necessarily just during the initial stages, but, whenever you increase the population, you will have these problems. So I would say that's a good thing as well. The last paragraph, last bullet there of that same 4 bullets, Chamorro concerns involving becoming a political minority are impacted by the potential increase in non-Chamorro populations relative to the proposed action. More non-Chamorro and local voters could potentially impact ongoing and future issues undergoing votes that do not limit participation to native inhabitants as defined by the Organic Act. Again, we are a multicultural island. We are a multicultural society. I think this is a challenge with anyone, but certainly when you increase the population, this will be a challenge. We will have problems, and we need to be prepared to how to deal with this. Okay. As we move down to 3.4.3, public safety, under 3.4.3.1, emergency response, I see here that it points out again about Guam's geographical location. So that's a good thing. It points that out about how strategic we are and by our location. So that's a good thing. On next page, page 3. First sentence of paragraph 3.4.3.2. When I used to be the director for Customs and Quarantine under Governor Camacho, I kind of fought this battle before with Chikpo about this supremacy clause. I do have a problem with supremacy clause. And if you read that, it says the supremacy clause applies when federal and local laws conflict and the federal policy or law would prevail. And we used to argue a lot with, and I bring this up to you, senators, because this is important, because I brought this up before when I was Customs Director, and we were having problems with boarding ships and airplanes and clearing them, and we were being given a hard time, so I had to bring it up to then Senator Judy Gutherts to help fight this battle. And again, I have a problem with that supremacy clause, and just bringing it to your attention. I think we have federal laws, we have local laws that need to be adhered to by people that live on our island. So again, I don't think we should have a conflict between federal laws and local laws. I think you guys do your very best to make sure that they're in tandem, that they're in support of one another. Okay. And continuing on that second sentence, Guam can regulate conduct and activity on federal property to the extent that this inconsistency does not occur. So there should be no inconsistency as far as I'm concerned. In the event of an infraction by an active duty personnel on or off base, the military maintains jurisdiction, although concurrent jurisdiction means that Guam would also have jurisdiction in most cases. So think if it's a crime committed on this island, whether on or off base, we do have jurisdiction. And we should just continue to work hand in hand with one another. And it says here also, further reading down, in cases involving civilians, jurisdiction is usually federal if the infraction occurred on base, and local if not. So I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't think that's true. I think if it's a case involving a civilian committing a crime on or off base, I think it is our... Okay. In the case of violent offense by active duty personnel, Guam has jurisdiction and can retain the individual on island. So that's pretty much accurate. Okay, and last sentence of that first paragraph: GPD processes most infractions off base, including those involving active duty. So that's a good sentence right there. Yes, sir.
Just on this point here, I don't know if DOC is going to be here later on this morning, but there was just a news story last week about a active duty military personnel that was involved in a DUI, and the victim had filed a complaint with the, or at least a lodged complaint with the Attorney General's office because that active duty military personnel was allowed to leave island. I have not asked anybody this question before, but I was just wondering, do we have a status of force agreement here that allows for them to leave like that?
No, we don't. No, we don't, Vice Speaker. Status of forces agreement are generally with the foreign countries, foreign nations.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but I was just surprised that the Attorney General's office allowed for this military personnel. It was, at least according to the victim, it was a fairly major car accident that she was very lucky that she wasn't killed. But
yeah, and generally when an active duty person has, let's say, a court hearing, so to speak, it is usually the command of that active duty member will work with the court system to ensure that his or her case is taken care of before he or she deploys to a combat zone. So I don't know what happened in that particular case, but I did hear that news.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I interrupted. I just thought I'd ask that question at that point because I had.
But generally speaking,
hadn't had the opportunity to ask anybody about whether or not there was a status of force agreement that we weren't aware of.
Not a status of force agreement, but generally speaking, a commander or a command or a unit would make sure that its members have everything taken care of before they deploy to war. Okay, and if we move down to paragraph 3.4.3.3, talks about GPD again. GPD is the municipal law enforcement agency for all Guam GPD and DOD entities collaborate on several issues of mutual concern, including traffic, training, so forth, shore patrol, blah, blah, blah. Again, if we're talking about this collaboration, then maybe, in the military they're very good on MOUs and MOAs, so maybe that's something to take note of is having such agreement in place, that how you work together and how you support one another, collaborate basically. Okay, and then this just continues on talking about GPD and staffing, so we can skip all that and move on to page 4. That first paragraph, it documents again, there's noted lack of police vehicles, which affects our GPD's ability to do its job at an optimal level, so that's a good statement there. And then under fire department, that last paragraph of the 3.4.3.4 talks about how GFD cooperates with the military. So I know that occurs quite frequently. So I'm sure that they have some sort of MOU, MOA. But if not, something you can ask the fire chief when he comes here, because we do need to work together. Fires occur everywhere. I know. Not only does the Navy helicopters help us with the brush fires outside the base, but we have also deployed on base to help them with a plane that went on fire one time, a bomber that went on fire, and they didn't have enough resources, so we did assist them from Guam Fire. Okay, coming down to that red bold statement, I noticed in this appendix we're talking about fire, we're talking about police, it talks about the library, it talks about Department of Labor, but it misses a whole lot of other key agencies. Our Guam Customs and Quarantine Agency is not mentioned in here, and maybe they need to be reminded that the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, U.S. ICE, is only responsible for immigration on Guam and the other U.S. territories. Our Guam Customs and Quarantine is responsible for all protection of the borders and ports of entry. In the U.S., in the 50 contiguous states, U.S. ICE does all of that work, but in the territories, they do not. In the territories, U.S. ICE is only responsible for immigration, but they don't do all the other jobs that U.S. ICE does in the 50 contiguous states. So that, with that said, U.S. Guam Customs and Quarantine needs to be identified in this appendix, and how they're going to work with our Guam Customs. Likewise, they make no mention of our airport police, our port police, and those are other key elements of our law enforcement community out here that need to be identified and how they're going to work with them. So I just make note of all that because they did not have their own separate paragraph in this SCIS document. Okay, if we move on down to move to the next page, please. That's kind of a continuation of a sentence that began with DOC and DOD have an MOU to house temporary detainees and an MOU with U.S. Immigration to house immigration violators. And it gives out a number of about an average of 6 to 10 active military personnel are confined. So with that being said, then they do have some interest in these facilities, which right now are completely crowded. You know, we do not have sufficient facilities. We need to build bigger ones, bigger facility for our for DOC. And it outlines here the agent in the third paragraph down. The agency has stated a need for an additional 1,000 bed facility, so it's outlined in here. Okay, youth affairs, it just goes on and on, so we'll go down page 6, please, next page. And I think down there under service population, it talks about military families do not typically use DYA services. And it talks about the migrants comprise a disproportionate percentage of clients and so forth. But you know, if a youth that is a military dependent does commit a crime and he's underage, this is the only place that a youth can be detained. So maybe not typically, but certainly we need to plan for that. That if we do get clients that are DOD dependents that are underage and commit a crime, then certainly they need to be factored into this facility, into the facility's needs of DYA. Okay, page 7 at the top. It's good at the bottom of page 6. They do mention that we're about the Veterans Court, so that's a good thing. The Veterans Court that we're working on, so that is good. With the amount of military population we'll have on this island. Page 7 now. I guess we're talking, if you go down to 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph, it talks about if a rotational troop gets in trouble, he or she may be held in Guam for trial. So that kind of clearly talks about what you're asking about earlier, Vice Speaker. Somebody who's going to rotate to war gets into trouble or commits a crime, he may be held in Guam for trial. And the military should be coordinates with the DOD to ensure rotational troops complete court-ordered requirements. Alcoholic treatment programs required, and so forth. Okay. So it does mention here if there's any court hearings or court thing that it needs to be taken care of. Okay, on the 1, 2, 3, the fifth paragraph down, it talks about our probation services. Supervises approximately 70 active military personnel. So that again, that's proof positive that our services in the community do support our active military. And we'll have to build capacity in all these areas. In all these areas we're talking about this morning, we need to build capacity. We need to build capacity across the board. and talks about our judicial center down here on the 6th paragraph down. And if we can go to the last page, please. The biggest thing that I have with labor, I just want to bring up with labor. I know we're going to bring in a lot of contract workers into the island, and the biggest problem that I've heard from judges and other people, and maybe some of yourselves, is the fact that if some of these contractors commit a crime, I think there's got to be some onus on the contractor who brought him or her in to make sure that those contractors who committed a crime are here for their hearing. And I think we have a problem with that. There's some kind of disconnect with that. And how are we going to make sure that contractors brought in to be part of this buildup who commit a crime later show up for their hearing in court? I believe there's some kind of void in there somewhere. And I think the onus needs to be on the DOD contractor who brought the contractor in. So I just want to make mention of that to this body, because I think that's a problem, a potential big problem we may have in the future if crimes get committed and we have a problem with these people showing up who commit the crimes toward our community or in our community. So just wanted to, and it has on paragraph 7 of this 8th page, responsibility of DOD to hold DOD contractors responsible for the deportation costs of contract workers, and ensuring DOD contractors are responsible for ensuring their contract workers are. So it's in there, but I've heard there was problems in the past, even from judges. So I just want to bring this, even though it's in here. But that's what I heard. And I gave you also some criminal cases involving military personnel I got from this website. I put the website down at the bottom, and just has a whole litany of different crimes that were committed and some aggregates. You can go to the website yourself and take a look at it. That was compiled over there. And from a GCC standpoint, I just also want to bring out another thing, is that I see a lot of contractors working at GCC coming in and doing these, obtaining these one-year licenses. They go down, get a $50 license, do the work, get several $1,000s, sometimes hundreds of thousands, and then they depart and they're done with the mission. But I think somehow our island may be losing out. I'm sure there's a 1099 associated with that work that was done, and does that 1099 get filed anywhere? And if it isn't getting filed here, are those companies filing it in their respective state? But I'm just saying that there may be a void. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. But I see these contractors coming in all the time, UOG, GCC, labor, HRD, whatever. They come in, get a $50 business license, get a $10,000 contract, and then they're gone. So I'm just raising that up as I don't know what the fix will be, but I think there's a potential loss of income or tax that's due to the island. Just my thoughts, just wanted to pass that on, because I did get a business license myself to do renting of apartments, so I saw the procedure, and I did bring in some contractors from the mainland too, and to teach some grant writing skills to law enforcement officers, and then he just disappeared. So I just wanted to make mention of that to this body. So these are just things that I shared again with the build-up. I think the build-up, it's we have something in the military that I learned when I was in the military that we call deliberate planning and hasty planning. We need to make sure that the planning that we do for this military build-up is deliberate. We need to all work together. We need to be communicating. We need to be open with it, transparent, because if we all live in a community, and in that community we have a whole bunch of people moving in, I would think that the whole bunch of people moving in would also have vested interest in all the things that they need to survive, be it infrastructure, be it our roadways, be it our medical, be it our schools, be it our restaurants, whatever. But I think when you're going to come in to the island and be part of the community, then certainly you have to have vested interest in everything that's in that community, not just stuff that's on the base, because they can't get everything on the base. I think it would be terrible if they were just confined in the base and couldn't come out and share in the resources of the community. So that's what I'm saying. When you come into a community, then really you have to take vested interest and personal concern on what can you do to make this community better for everyone. So that's what we try and do with the post commission for law enforcement. But in light of this draft SEIS, I think that's what we need to do. It needs to be so that it's good for everyone. It's good for Guam. It's good for them, but it's good for everyone as a whole because they're becoming part of the island as a whole. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I also want to recognize the presence of Senator Conrad and Senator Cruz and Senator
Okay.
And Colonel, I know this is your first round with the EIS. Colonel, I realize that this isn't your first experience having to go through the environmental impact statement. You were a director during the last one, and as Senator Dueñas said, the two of you worked together on some of the responses, and it was deja vu coming back to the legislature to have this discussion about the impact. Have you had the opportunity in meeting with the other members of the Post to talk about how this gradual, this new realignment is going to affect the need for peace officers, and how you all were going to address that as a...
Yeah, we haven't. I've spoken to them kind of individually. They all have concerns about the insufficient capacity they all have to do their jobs right now, even before the buildup. So that is one area that I've tried to help them in, is in levering financial aid programs, apprenticeship programs at the GCC to try and help the respective agencies who are all challenged with funds. But yes, it is a concern of just about all the chiefs of law enforcement, the peace officers, that they all know that they need to build capacity, but they're just lacking in resources to get there. So I'm just trying to find any other ways within the college that we can do to help them out without really hitting their limited pocketbooks, because they don't really have much to go around to build capacity. So if we can help them in that endeavor, even if it's just trickle build, we're trying to do what we can to do it, help them. I know we have some GPD cycles going on right now. We have a summer academy cycle going on right now. So I know Fire's talking to us about doing more, and so is Corrections. So yeah, I'm trying to work with all these different agencies and departments to help them, because they're all kind of in the same dire straits of needing more people.
Have any of them mentioned to you a number or a number of personnel that they might be needing in anticipation of this realignment?
Not yet, but I can certainly work with them and get more tangible figures from each of them, and maybe what they need throughout. I can work with them on getting that when we meet on our next meeting this month.
And has Post in the new regs or that you are going to be promulgating soon, has there been buy-in by the departments? I mean, the various departments. I've been having a running battle with them about the fact that GCC goes through all these training cycles, and yet the departments insist on doing their own. It would seem to me that over the last several years, GCC has trained, or at least educated, probably a sufficient number, if not an overabundance, of
criminal justice certificate
criminal
holders.
justice people. I mean, I saw when I went to the commencement the other night at UOG, and the criminal justice stood up. I couldn't figure out what we were going to do with all it was like, I think, 6 or 7 rows of them.
Right.
And when I went to the GCC commencement the week before, there was also a large contingent and I've attended a couple of the graduations. Is there a way that Post can write their regs so that the departments will be satisfied with the training that you all endeavor to provide, and so that we can meet this need? I mean, there's no question that there are people out there that have the certification from your Bolea group up at GCC that could fill many of the vacancies if there was enough money. But I was just wondering, has that been addressed by Post to get everybody's buy-in so that the training done by GCC is the training that can and should be?
With both the Post rules and regulations that we drafted up, we did receive a overwhelming majority from everyone that who voted in favor of it and to adopt it and to approve it. Likewise, with the physical fitness policy we also drafted up last month, that too also received unanimous approval from the commission, from all the members of the commission. And in response to the Vice Speaker's question, when we developed the rules and regulation, that was very much needed, because in the past there was no real set standards for law enforcement officers coming into the force from an entry level other than high school. With the new rules and regulation, it's more specific. You will have to have that certification of criminal justice completed. You will have to be a high school or a GED graduate holder, and a whole other litany of things that need to be met before you can become a law enforcement officer. So, to answer your question, Vice Speaker, yes, the rules and regs are going to be more specific in who and what specific standards need to be met before an individual can apply to become a peace officer within our, one of our law enforcement agencies on Guam. So it'll be a good thing, because it's something that's been lacking for a long time.
Thank you very much for providing this to us and pointing out this. It'll help with the rest of the departments that will be coming in. And Dr. Anderson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Speaker. Sir, thank you for making the time and for your due diligence and preparation. Let me start with Post. I'm very glad that you're there. I know your work, and so I know that you are going to ensure that the training is meaningful and relevant for today. I know General Orders 12-03 is on the table, and that's really important for us. Behavioral wellness is a real critical issue, and first responders really need to be on top of that. So I appreciate that now we acknowledge that there has to be training in how to identify those of us with mental deficiencies, mental challenges, and how to appropriately deal. We still have a lot of work done. We still have a lot of work to be done, but that, for me, was significant. And at the time when Senator Palacios was here, he worked towards that, so I appreciate that. Colonel, I wanted to add, as you were going through everything, it is acknowledged in many of our meetings, most certainly with our Vice Speaker here, that Child Protective Services also is an avenue that that they come outside the fence, and we do work with them. When Lydia Tenorio was the administrator of CPS, we had many coffee chats or after-hour chats about that kind of work. But we know that there is very good dialogue between the military and our government at the Public Health Social Services and how that works. And we do know that they have a very good representation in all of those advisory councils. So that kind of relationship effort will continue and grow. But I wanted to say that for the record. I, too, am very concerned about the social, culture, and impacts, and I do know that Ms. Colleen, we have been in communication. They are working on and they've done it continuously, but they're really focusing on cultural assimilation. And that has to happen before folks come here. And as well, I've made the statement that that has to happen for us as well. Yes. We are blessed with cultural diversity, but we have to know what that looks like, what that sounds like, and sometimes what it smells like, yep. Right? Yes. And so I know that they're working on those training modules, and it has to be repeatedly done before they come, when they come, as they come, and then we on our side have to do the same thing. We need to make sure that we welcome and we need to make sure our people, I've heard our people talk about making certain statements, and we always stop and say, stop for a minute, right? And let's talk about how we do this with respect and regard, because that is what we need to be able to do. So I certainly appreciate again, Denny, that your fine work, and I think GCC Post is very fortunate to have you. Very fortunate to have you. So thank you for your continued service.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Colonel. I really appreciate your presence here. And as was noted earlier, the work over many years that we did together. So I'm going to do just a small recap and then ask a couple specific questions. I guess a general question from the beginning would be, in all of your findings here, have you prepared comments for the SEIS?
I'm working on that now. Based on some of the things, I'm actually preparing formal comments that I will submit online. So yes, I will prepare a comment on behalf of the Post Commission.
Thank you. I guess my second question then would be, in your observation, not only from your military service, but also in your preparation of documentation such as this, do you see all the items that you've highlighted as mitigatable?
As mitigator?
As being able to be mitigated?
Yes, they are. And like Senator Yamashita said, it takes both sides. We've got to meet each other halfway to make this all happen, and that's why I said it's not something that we should do hastily, but more deliberately, so that we don't miss those things.
So that leads me to my third question. Thank you for segueing with me. Do you think it would be prudent for Post, especially in your position, and I don't know that this would be any type of intervention on the leadership in terms of the current structure of public safety, but to bring to the attention maybe a revisit of all of the work that we did over the number of years in the CivMil Task Force for Build Up 1, which was huge and voluminous. Do you think that some of those factors may be contained in the work that was done by each agency, and maybe a coordination through Post of a review of all those documents to see how they fit to the current SEIS?
And I can bring this up at our Post Commission meeting later this month, a couple of weeks from now, and I'll bring that up to the respective chiefs and introduce them. If they haven't seen the work that we did back then, I'll provide them copies of it and point out that it's important for them to get involved in this process. We can't just accept things as is. They've got to have personal and vested interest in this, in this process that's going to be with us for years and generations to come. So we've got to do it right.
I know Mark Cavo is busy on a very high level.
Yes.
But I also know that during our time, and you remember this, Colonel, we have people, institutional knowledge that are still there at the, enlisted, if you would, at the worker bee level of our government, middle management, that know and have prepared those documents. And in our time, we were working hand in hand with JICPO. There were meetings almost on a monthly basis in terms of exchange of information and the like. So I just wanted to remind that I think that kind of coordination is something that is needed to once again, as we come to comments on the SEIS and moving forward, once the record of decision is made. So I think that should be part of our comments. Just two more things in my observation, Colonel. Have you had a chance to visit on an unclassified tour or even get a briefing on the current THAAD relocation to Guam?
No, I have not, Senator.
Colonel, if I were you, I would request that. And in my visit to the THAAD battery installation of $1.5 billion of investment in a very contained period of time, I think you will find that the execution and the level of precision to that movement is a mini buildup, if you will, and a good example of how good partnerships can be established. If you look at the wildlife issues, all the other issues that they've done with mitigation up there, if you look at they have already prepared a economic impact outside the fence, pretty impressive in terms of the kind of monies being spent in the community and as you mentioned, outside the fence participation.
Yes.
Just the 200 plus relocated here displaced a number of folks having housing on base because of the security level of those who came in. and those members now live in our community.
Yes.
And are renting our homes and contributing to our economy. So I think, Colonel, if you would, maybe I'm sure Jake Poe would probably give public safety an unclassified brief on that, and it was very impressive.
Thank you, sir.
My last comment, and I think I would encourage a development. Last week I spent 3 days in a conference up at the University of Guam for the Regional Biosecurity Plan. And this would be in your lane, Colonel, and I also ask you maybe to get a debrief from the president of the university, as well as Roland Kitagua, who has been appointed now the interim coordinator for biosecurity. And the reason why I bring that up to you is even Hawaii, I say even Hawaii because of their political power within their statehood, and the like, brought up the issue with biosecurity when it comes to conflicts in policy with the Supremacy Clause. And so this may be an entranceway to, and a segue to, working through some of the federal local issues when it comes to the Supremacy Clause. They are joining with the regional biosecurity plan, which includes the Secretariat of the region and beyond the FSM and Hawaii and Guam and RMI and Palau. So this is a very serious endeavor. Of course, biosecurity is something that we're all concerned with and the like, but it may be the gateway to visiting supremacy clauses, which allows, especially in law enforcement, cross-jurisdictional issues to be, worked on. So I encourage also, because I joined Senator Yamashita in being very pleased at your position, because I know you know all these worlds, if you will, when it comes to federal local relations. So I encourage you to please also reach out with regard to the regional biosecurity plan, and as a gateway and a segue maybe to some of the other challenges with regard to federal local relations.
Okay, Senator, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Colonel, thank you very much for providing all this to us. And I didn't want to go in depth with you on the various departments because they're supposed to be coming before us. As I had mentioned earlier, GPD has asked to be rescheduled because they have a officer's funeral this morning, and I just got word that DOC is not coming at 10:30. So when we reschedule them on the 3rd, we will have an opportunity to be able to ask them the questions, some of the things that you have raised, and I appreciate, as Senator Yamashita put it, the due diligence that you have shown in preparing for today's hearing. I'm hoping that the rest of them will be as well prepared as you are. As I understand it, the governor has instructed all the directors to be prepared with their comments by the 30th of this month, which is day after tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And the speaker had asked the various chairs to have these hearings so we could hear what the departments were saying in the hopes of starting to see whether or not we can and should start planning for additional personnel in some of these areas. And that was the reason that we were going to be conducting these hearings. I have mine today, and on the 3rd, they'll have a series of others starting tomorrow also. And but I'm hoping everybody is as well prepared as you are. And can assist us in the preparation, because then it'll not only help the administration with its responses, but I think it has provided all of us here some very good insight into some of the concerns that those of you have in public safety. So on my behalf and on behalf of the committee, I'm sure, and the senators that are here, we thank you for your work and your continued work in this area.
Okay, thank you,
We'll
Vice Speaker.
stand in recess until 11. Thank you.
Thank you again.